Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. You are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Skaggs and yours truly, the Captain. And after today's events, boys and girls, we are in a doomed nation. America is now a third world country. What's up, buddy? How you doing? What's on today's docket?
Back in the man cave, back in the captain's quarters over there, and we had a lot planned today, and it seems like, you know, before we start recording, I always like to spend like that hour or two after work, like with the family, relaxing before and not doing anything political. And it seems like sometimes the biggest news always breaks during that period, which is kind of annoying on my part of things. So we're gonna have to obviously talk about Donald Trump being found guilty in the New York City Stormy Daniels hush money case on all 34 counts.
I was expecting it to break while we were recording.
That too. That'd be better, at least. You know, get instant reaction. So we will talk about that, and we will talk about what was before this the big news of the past week, which is probably for the first time ever, the Libertarian Party and the convention that they had over the weekend. Donald Trump did go there. Chase Oliver has been nominated as Libertarian Presidential Candidate. We really wanted to kind of respond to what Donald Trump had to say there and give our takes. Obviously, me being a libertarian and Captain being in the libertarian world and interested in all that stuff as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. In case you missed it, or in case you're listening on the audio platforms, the last thing we did was, so we've been away for a minute from like normal podcasting. Last thing we did was go down to Trump's rally in the Bronx. So if you're listening on the audio platforms, go over to our YouTube, Rumble, or my Twitter account, and you can check out us on the ground at the Trump rally in the Bronx, interviewing people, talking to people. It was really interesting. It was really cool. That's not on the audio platforms. So
wild how much of a difference a week makes, huh?
What is the quote? There are weeks when months happen, or there's days when years happen, and there are years when days happen. You know, like things move fast sometimes. All right. I don't know what's your instant reaction,
man. Instant reaction, huh? I'm kind of indifferent, unfortunately, about this because one thing I always learned from years of doing this and being a Trump supporter is you never underestimate Donald Trump. And on top of it, he's probably one of the luckiest people in the world. But when you got to change statutes of limitations and you change court procedure as you're in the middle of a hearing, all to get an indictment, it's a kangaroo court. And I'm sure YouTube and Instagram and all the communist companies are going to censor anything we say other than the fact that he's guilty or that this was a mistrial. He's obviously going to appeal it. This is all for headlines, but I'm not surprised that he was found guilty. This, for anybody whose head's not up their ass, this was a witch hunt. This was a very unprecedented. There's been no case like this. This was a white collar crime, and you would think the guy murdered 34 people instead of having 34 counts of fraud or whatever. This is all to say that he's a convicted felon. It's not going to change anything. It's wild to see that like the left will pay any cost to get Donald Trump, even if that cost is exposing the entire corrupt system. And let's be real, the only people that are cheering today are the blind, misinformed, ignorant, and the corrupt. Those are the only two groups of people.
People who have TDS.
That are
seeing that
are cheering this on right now. Like I said before we started, we're not legal experts. I don't want to spend too much time on this topic. It sucks that it happened. I don't know where it goes from here. I don't know if he's going to go behind bars or house arrest, what it does to the election, what it does to the rest of his campaign. I can promise you Biden's going to back out of the debates now. Go, I'm not going to get on stage with a convicted felon and use, the moral high ground. But we, the people, are activated now. Remember, the 5th of November. I think, this is this is going to cause more harm than good to the Democrats. They did this for a smear campaign, and it's going to come back tenfold. And my last point of this rant is the left has now set the precedent for how a president can be tried. So let's get Bush, Obama, Clinton, all the good old boys right up there, in the kangaroo court.
Yeah, that's ironic because was it Benjamin Netanyahu the past week said, "Oh, if you're gonna try and arrest me for what's going on in Gaza, then you'd have to arrest President Bush for what he did after 9/11." I'm like, yeah, we should. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Your terms are accepted.
Yeah, I mean, what to say here? As I've said many times on this podcast, and it's kind of ironic because this is definitely one of the biggest stories or things to ever happen in the history of American politics. The current frontrunner, the former president, is now found guilty of 34 charges of some bullshit case. But then I also find it extremely boring, as I've said many times, because it's like, yeah, I know, I get it. It's corrupt. It's not fair. They're obviously trying to go after him. If not practically to actually put him in bars and just to have like this talking point to use against him. Like I'm seeing guys like Eric Swalwell already saying like, your choice is clear now. You could vote for a convicted felon or you could vote for Joe Biden. Like
felon.
Copy paste. That's what they're all going to say. That being said, it is absolutely insane. I will guess as to where it's going to go. I know you said you don't know. I mean, I don't know either. I guess it'll appeal, and the appeal will probably push out past the election and get into, because the justice system works so slow. My guess is that it'll push out past the election and he'll become president and he'll wiggle out of it somehow, in that regard. Hopefully he will do something as president to try and break up the swamp and hold some people accountable, and then investigations will occur. And maybe he could get out of it that way, that it would expose in a really fair way how this was unfair. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's what will happen.
Yeah. I've said it in the past, like I might be a Trump supporter, but like, look, if the tape comes out and the murder weapon's on the table and Trump's convicted, shun closed case, I'd accept the terms. Yeah. You know what I mean?
What this is, though.
But it's not. It's exactly
hush
not
money
what that is.
To Stormy Daniels. And again, like you're right. We're not legal scholars. I have been keeping my eye on what's going on here, but again, I find it boring. My mind was made up from the beginning that it's corrupt, and I don't really need to know anything else. But I do know a little bit. His lawyer Michael Cohen testified in this case, and he basically admitted to stealing the money, that Donald Trump gave him, or he took. I think he took his own money and then he reimbursed himself through Trump. Didn't say what it was for, and that he stole some off the top. I mean, it just everything. If you actually look into the details, it smells. What the judge put out the other day, kind of instructing the jury as exactly what to do. It's all bizarre. I do have a video here of Trump giving his remarks after. I thought we could play that for everybody.
Let's go for it.
Hear what the man himself has to say in the wake of all of this. So let's move over to that real quick.
Grace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful.
So he's commenting on the area the trial is in, which is New York, right? Which, I mean, obviously New York's going to lean left and blue, although we just went to the Bronx rally. So it's not 100% the case. But I think there's obviously some merit to that. I'm actually kind of surprised that this wrapped up, because I texted you earlier today. I'm like, oh, the case, the jury seems to have been dismissed for the day. I thought maybe that meant that they couldn't come to an
that was coming tomorrow.
And, that they're still in, because sometimes in juries, like half of everybody thinks they're guilty. The other half doesn't, or thinks there's not enough evidence. And then they're there for weeks or days deliberating amongst themselves. I thought that that's where this was going. So it's kind of odd that they were like, hey, the jury's dismissed. And then later, like, oh, yeah, by the way, we found him guilty, like right in the afternoon. So,
yeah, I would love to have been a fly on the wall in the jury selection process and the jury deliberation process.
Yeah, it's worth noting too, like in the jury selection process, that both teams, the prosecution and the defense have to agree on who gets admitted to the jury.
Mm-hmm.
I've been put in jury duty before and I got out of it. Let's just put it that way, because I didn't want to do it. And I said certain
racist
things that got me. No, it had nothing to do with that. But I said certain things that I knew would finagle my way out of jury duty. And the defense team dismissed me because they didn't want me in there. So while there is definitely like just the pool of people, it's definitely probably going to be majority leaning against Trump. You did have some, at least his team did have some saying who gets, put to the jury. Let's keep listening here.
Trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now, from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why should the voters vote for it?
All right.
I got to say, I'm a little jealous because the party at CNN tonight is going to be fucking wild. Absolutely wild. And the party at The View tomorrow, oh, those bitches are going to show up hammered and disheveled. All right. I almost wish I paid for cable to, like, instead of just the streaming services, so I could see them like just joyful on TV.
There'll be clips. There'll be, yeah. I'm sure I'll make a couple of clips of their just ludicrous response to this. That it will be. Look, man, we'll get on to libertarian stuff here next. I hope this radicalizes Trump even further, if it hasn't already, and he starts to really understand what needs to be done, right? Which is shrink the size of government, draining the swamp and shrinking the size of government go hand in hand, and then putting people who are not part of that machine into positions of power, which is going to be the biggest probably topic here we're talking about. That's been my biggest criticism of him these past, his first term, and who he's kind of flirting with the second time around. There's no more. We don't have time to be entertaining neocons and Nikki Haley's and Lindsey Graham's. They might say that they're on Trump's side in these things, but when it comes down to it, they're all part of that machine anyway that's trying to get him. And I know some people will make the 4D chess, argument that like, well, you need, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. How about we just get rid of our fucking enemies? How about that? Right? And we don't
sounding like a warmonger.
And we don't invite them into our administration and offer them the levers of power to wield.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Agree.
So maybe we'll just get into libertarian stuff here on. Do you have any other thoughts or comments on this part?
No, I mean, we'll be. I think it's going to be more interesting to follow the aftermath than the actual trial.
Yeah.
We just got to let it unfold.
Jennifer Moffitt says same. All right.
Samesies.
All right. So let's get into the LP stuff. It was really interesting. And like I was saying when we first started, definitely the biggest thing the Libertarian Party's ever done.
Yes. Which I'm glad to see because, everybody who's listened to this show and all the libertarians that we've had on and spoke to, I've always, spoke about my grievances with the party, and I think this was a strong move in the right direction, and I'm glad. I'm glad Trump showed up. I'm glad they were smart enough to invite Trump. I wish Biden showed up. I mean, you don't need to tell me that was never going to happen. We know that, but this was a right move, the right thing to do for the party. Because I could promise you this week alone, the Libertarian Party, no matter what the outcome is, that party popped up on way more people's radar than it ever has.
Yeah, 100%. It was trending. It was in the news. The corporate press was writing articles about it. Some things for good, some things for bad. Before we get into it, I do want to give Professor Rechtenwald a shout out and thanks. He did come on our show twice throughout his entire campaign. He didn't have to do that. We don't have a big, large show, right? He didn't ask for anything in return. He just decided to come on and chat with us 2 times. And he fell short in this whole thing as he lost to Chase Oliver. We actually have an interesting personal story about with Chase Oliver. So if you remember back in December, we were at the Libertarian Party of Connecticut's convention, and we actually hosted the debate amongst the candidates there, and we did our own little podcast, and we were part of the whole proceedings. After all said and done here, I do regret not being more involved in the inter-party politics myself personally. I think one of the lessons from this entire past weekend that I learned is you have to be involved. I think Ben, the emo ANCAP, he says the party belongs to those who show up. He's right. And if you, and I just had a baby and things like that, and I knew that was coming around this time, so I couldn't go. But I feel like I need to be more personally involved next time around and just not rely on retards to kind of just get everything done on their own. You need to put your chips on the table. Just put it that way.
Yeah, with circling back to what I just said, that I believe this event was a great thing and a move in the right direction, and it's what I want to see the Libertarian Party do. But in the same night, they also shit the bed once again because they can't get their shit together, and they elect Oliver Chase. So
yeah, Chase Oliver. So Oliver, I'm also not going to sit here and shit on Chase Oliver for the next hour, right? But Chase is a lefty. He sounded like a lefty when we talked to him. He's being completely dragged on social media now for all his previous.
That has been wild to watch.
As a lefty, he's not a good representative of at least my camp of libertarianism. And what I know, there's no true Scotsman in libertarianism, right? No one's a real libertarian, everyone says, but he's not a good representative of libertarianism. And I don't like the fact that he's the nominee now, because this woke crap that he entertains is going to be associated with libertarianism. When it's not right. Going back to a personal story with Chase, at the LP convention in Connecticut, we were, after it was all said and done, Captain was itching to roast a bone outside. So finally, we all go outside and we're lighting up cigars, we're having drinks, and Chase comes out and he starts talking to everybody, and he decides to light up a joint with us and have a smoke.
And the funniest part of it all is, on the way up to the convention the night before, I said, wouldn't it be crazy if we smoke weed with a presidential candidate? And boy, I never imagined this was going to turn out this way, but it did.
And it did. Yeah. So now the two Doom Men have officially smoked a joint with someone who's on the official presidential ticket. He will be on your voting card there come November. Crazy in of itself. Look,
and he's not a bad guy. To hang out with. I mean, his policies doo-doo, but to hang out with him, it was a good time. I had a fun night.
Yeah, he was nothing but nice to us and funny, and we chatted and we were stoned, so we were laughing. Chase is also pretty smart, I'm not going to lie, which makes me a little bit more suspicious, and you kind of pointed this out to me, of some of his really bad positions. At one point, Chase said to me, give me like a local issue in Connecticut that you guys are facing, and he's like, and I'll maybe try and give you guys an answer or some way to combat it. And I was like, the price of electricity is through the roof here in Connecticut. And he asked me, he's like, okay, what's the market look like? I'm like, well, I've complained about this a lot on the podcast a couple of times. There's this company called Eversource, and they essentially have a government-controlled monopoly on the power industry in Connecticut. And Chase is like, huh. And he right away comes up with a pretty clever, subversive method of how the libertarians in Connecticut could try and combat how expensive electricity is. And he's like, you should coalition with leftists in Connecticut by telling them, hey, don't we like solar energy, right? Like, we like green things, right? So we should try and get Connecticut to deregulate the solar industry market so that it'll be easier and cheaper and more affordable to get solar panels on your roof. That will bring competition against Eversource. To also in Connecticut, I was explaining to him how, so like, if you put solar panels in your roof in Connecticut, the power goes back to Eversource. It doesn't even come to you. It's like you're selling them the power backwards, in a way. So he's like, you could get the leftists on your side to get that undone. So it's your power. You could have some off the grid living, which is like a libertarian idea, and you could deregulate the industry. Market forces can drive down the price. I came away impressed by that conversation. He was saying to coalition with liberals in Connecticut and get something done that advances the causes of free markets, Austrian economics, and liberty. So I thought that was pretty smart.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he worked really fucking hard. He went to all 50 states, which he told us he was going to do. He did do it, and I'm sure he had a million other conversations like that with delegates at those conventions, and it gave him just enough in the end to win in the last round of voting. Now, that doesn't mean that there doesn't appear to be a little bit of fuckery and gamesmanship that occurred in
this
the
was if you're about to talk about Mike Terramont, right?
Yeah, who we've been on twice as well.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, when we met these politicians, shields up, you're a politician, you're going to talk to me and tell me what I want to hear. And like Skag started the story out, I pointed that out to him. Chase was, constantly talking the whole night that we hung out with him and stuff. But out of the group of them, I enjoyed Mike the most. You know what I mean? Like, he was like a good stand-up guy, ex-cop, all this stuff. So I was really taken back in what he pulled in this whole situation. But it is politics.
It's politics, right? And there shouldn't be crybabies, I guess, in politics. But Dr. Rechtenwald, Professor Rechtenwald, Dr. Rechtenwald, he won, I believe, the first 5 out of 6 rounds of voting. He was winning. He was leading in all of them. And it came to, and then it's a process of elimination as the rounds go on. I believe it was down to Rec, who was leading, Chase, and Mike Terramont. And according to Rec and some of the people in his camp, they said that Mike Terramont had agreed to drop out, endorse Rechtenwald, and become his VP. Clint Russell says that he decided to drop out of the VP race to make that happen as well. Clint Russell was running for VP, and he was going to team up with Rechtenwald. And then before the vote happens, apparently Mike Terramont flips and makes the same deal with Chase Oliver. And it ends up putting Chase Oliver over the hump by, I believe, like 44 votes, 44 delegate votes. And he ends up winning. And then, he was actually then... He wins that round. Rechtenwald is he's basically eliminated, and then Chase is running against none of the above in the last round. So almost no one became the nominee, which is ironic. And then he ends up beating none of the above. But the fuckery appears to be that they didn't even start this process until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which was very late. There's some text messages, and apparently this leftist classical liberal portion of the Libertarian Party was trying to delay proceedings and this as long as possible, and that ended up causing it was the last day of the convention. People had flights booked to go home. Some of the delegates that were going to support Rechtenwald perhaps and whatnot had to leave because they had a flight and they didn't get to vote in the last couple of rounds, and all of these things combined ended up producing Chase as the nominee. Now, at the same time, I'm not trying to take anything away from the hard work Chase did as well, but it does seem like there was some gamesmanship behind the scenes that produced him.
Politicking.
Yeah, and there has been this kind of civil war in the Libertarian Party the last couple of years. The Mises Caucus became a thing with the intention of taking over the party and getting rid of these leftists that are in the party because they don't represent libertarianism well. And unfortunately, they lost this, what was culminating these past 4 years up to this. They didn't get it. It should have been Dave Smith. It should have been Dave Smith. He's taken accountability, which I will share here in a minute. But on the bright side, look, the Mises Caucus does now have a larger,
spotlight.
Not even spotlight, but like they did win the positions within the party. So like who they have a majority of control over, like the party, like who works in the party, who has positions. Angela McArdle, who did a fantastic job setting up this entire thing. She won, and she's going to be the chair of the party again. We're going to share a couple tweets of hers later. So the Mises Caucus still is basically in control of the party bureaucracy. It's just that they didn't get their presidential candidate this year. So it's a bit of a mismatch, right? You have the Liberal Caucus presidential candidate, and now the body of the party is the more right-leaning Mises Caucus that I'm a member of. So it's interesting to say the least. Not the best outcome, but damn it, they did something.
I think it's a better outcome than most people lead, because now that Chase is the nominee, Trump was there, and I'm sure we'll talk about Trump's little speech that he gave at the Libertarian Convention. But now a majority of the right-leaning people, whether they support Trump or begrudgingly support Trump, they're probably going to vote for him. And if you think, what are they going to do? Vote for RFK?
That's what we're going to get into. That's what we're going to get into here in the next part. But go ahead.
And the one thing that, I was listening to, who was it? Tim Pool. And he said something that, sparked my interest was Chase is very progressive. He's libertarian and he's progressive. And the fundamentals of what Chase wants is, I understand, it's just not good. He might pull some of the progressive votes from Biden.
Maybe.
There's a lot of
Trump, right?
Yeah.
Him being the nominee does help Trump more than Rechtenwald being the nominee.
Right. And it helps Trump, it doesn't help Biden at all, because Chase goes in there and starts supporting Palestine, free Palestine, which I'm pretty sure that is one of his policies. I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to misspeak, but you're going to lose you're going to lose a majority of your perspectives. Progressives.
Your progressives. Look, my problem with Chase isn't that he's gay or that he has bad positions on, I think I tweeted this, on like the transgender bathroom stuff. My problem with him is that if you're going to be the Libertarian Party's candidate, you got to be way ahead of the fucking curve on anything, any of these issues, right? And if you don't understand that a lot of those identitarian politics things or some sort of psyop, right, from some deep state lab think tank somewhere, or that COVID, all the bad things about COVID. He wasn't great on COVID. He wasn't in favor of lockdown and mandates, right? But there's a million pictures of him now, supporting getting the vaccine and wearing masks and things like that. If you're going to be the candidate, you have to be better than that. I'm sorry, right? And I can't support you if you're not going to be better. In the moment, as the thing's happening, we're not running to be candidate, right? And in the first 2 weeks of COVID, me and you weren't sure what was going on, and we kind of bought the bullshit in the first 2 weeks. But we're not running to be the presidential candidate of a major political party, nor were we libertarians at the time. Or was I, a libertarian at the time? I was radicalized by the COVID regime afterwards. If you're in the party at the time and you're running for you need to be ahead of the curve on these things. Maybe you're not gonna win the presidency, right? But you need to be pushing the message of truth, bold fucking truth, like Ron Paul did, right? Especially in the moment. Then you need to be able to point back to the history. Like, remember when this crazy shit happened? Look where I was at the time, right? That's what you need to be able to do.
I always find it funny, like, maybe we should be running for a presidency or something, because, just the other week when we were talking about the Como brothers, and they're sitting there going, we just didn't know. We didn't know. We did. Then how did me and you know? How did the two Doom men know all the way back then? How did we get censored week in and week out because we were spreading misinformation, but you guys didn't know, and we somehow had it right?
Our channels are still somewhat damaged from all that time. We started our podcast adventure back then, and it started in like a time where it's hard to get take off at that time, and we're still dealing with that bullshit today. We just recently got out of years of YouTube, restrictions and strikes and things like that.
Probably get one today for saying, Trump's innocent.
So you got to be right on these things when they occur if you're going to be running for positions of power. And you know who was right at the time? Dave fucking Smith was, right? And whatever, Chase is the nominee. That's fine. But the real, look, in my opinion, and I'm sure in many other people's opinion, the real leader of the libertarian movement is Dave Smith. And if this weekend proved anything, it did prove that he is the real leader of this, regardless of who the presidential candidate is. Not just because I'm going to share his tweet here in a minute, and this is like a, just like a testament of actual leadership, but the speeches he gave, he's smart, he knows this shit, he shits on people in debate.
Yeah, he doesn't back down.
Right? He's about to debate our buddy Chris Cuomo over there this coming weekend, and I'm sure he's going to destroy him there about the COVID regime. Dave Smith is.
He better hope Chris Cuomo doesn't start swinging on him.
So Dave is the actual leader of the libertarian movement, in my opinion, regardless of whoever the candidate of the party at the moment is. Let's share what he had to say. So Dave Smith tweeted, the LP Mises caucus set out on a mission to bring the Ron Paul revolution into the Libertarian Party to shed the party of goofiness, wokeness, and corruption. It's been an incredibly rewarding journey, and I've met some amazing people who will be lifelong friends along the way. At the last convention in Reno, we swept every position with supermajorities. This weekend, we retained control of the LNC while re-electing Angela McCardle, who is a phenomenal chair, and put on the best convention in the party's history. Unfortunately, we lost the big one, and there's no getting around that. I can't ignore the elephant in the room here. This is all my fault. When I was planning on running, there was tremendous enthusiasm and energy amongst our ranks. When I pulled out for family-related reasons, it pulled the rug out from under our guys, and we weren't able to recover. It's ridiculous to blame to put any blame on the Mises chair for this. He is an incredibly decent, brilliant, and hardworking person who never compromised his principles and continued to fight for the Mises Caucus vision. Rechtenwald was the best candidate, willing to step up and worked tirelessly while making enormous personal sacrifices for the cause. He came within a hair of winning, but fell short. Don't forget, Rechtenwald did lose he lost his job, I think, in 2 different places. He lost his job, I think, at Hillsdale College, and he got in trouble at the other place that he used to teach at as well. Mm-hmm. So Rechtenwald did put some stuff on the line as well. The blame is on me, not those guys. I deserve to take my lumps, and I can handle that, but please don't take this out on good people who busted their asses for you. It's my fault, and I'm sorry I let you down. Yesterday, I congratulated Chase in person and on here. Of course, I can't endorse or vote for him, just as he wouldn't for me. He doesn't represent me and my camp or the things we stand for. I'll always support Angela and the Mises Caucus team. Hopefully, we can accomplish more amazing things in the future. I'm going to continue doing what I do, spreading our ideas to as large an audience as possible in the most compelling way I can. See you soon, Cuomo. So that was Dave Smith's response to all that.
I'm glad he's willing to take his lumps because, I mean, we had this conversation a week ago. I blamed him. I blame him. Yeah. You know, and I rightfully do. From an outsider, even from an outsider's perspective, I knew he was the candidate. Yeah, and I get it. I mean, you got kids. I'm around your kids all the time. It can't be easy. He's also a comedian. He does way more than the 2 of us do combined, probably. I get it. But he was the candidate. He was the chosen one.
Right. He's going through the hero's journey here, Captain. That's my take, right? The stereotypical hero's journey. He's Jon Snow, right? The best people to be king are usually the ones who don't want to do it. And along the hero's journey, at some point, you fall, right? And then from your fall, you learn and you come back like a fucking phoenix. Mm-hmm. And then you go and, you carry out, your story arc.
Or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Right? But I don't think that's the case here with Dave Smith, at least. But, hopefully this is his, his get stabbed moment and die, and then he resurrects and comes back. And unlike Jon Snow, he actually decides that he does want it in the future, and he, takes leadership by the horns.
Trump becomes president. He starts looking for the next king. Vivek wants it. Maybe Dave gets it.
Oh, who knows, man? Vivek and Dave are friends. They had they were speaking at the convention. It's interesting, man. But Dave has the charisma. He's the guy, and he is the guy right now. Is my point before. It doesn't matter that he's not the actual nominee. He's still going to go and do the best job for libertarianism as a principle, as a belief structure, as an ideology. All these things in the next couple of years. So, all right. With that being said, let's get into the next part of this, which is Trump at the convention.
Yes, sir.
It wasn't just Trump either. It was RFK was there. Vivek was there. I will tell people to check out Clint Russell debating Vivek. Damn it, Clint Russell did a great fucking job debating Vivek and had a couple really good one-liners and zingers in a nice way. Vivek I still really like. But so a couple big things came out of Trump's speech. Now he did get booed, which I was expecting there to be some booing.
So did I.
Crowd, because there's the nuanced, problems that a lot of us libertarians have. I don't know. Do you think they should have booed? I kind of wish that they didn't boo, but I don't know. What do you think?
I'm glad they did. coming from a Trump supporter, you go to all these rallies and you're kissing babies and shaking hands all day. I wanted to see legitimate pushback on Trump. When the left pushed back on Trump, it's not real. You know what I mean? It's
right.
10.
It's what we saw last week, right? He's a Nazi. He's racist.
Yeah. It's 9 out of 10 times like you're calling him a racist when you're probably the most racist person here. You probably have more in common with Nazis than he does. So I wanted to see like real people with what I like about the Libertarian Party is, the absolute property rights and the smaller governments and things like that. And I wanted to see people who have these ideas that I think are really good policies and ideas push back on the man, to see his reaction, to see what his perspective is on maybe absolute property rights. You know what I mean? Like, let's get Trump's point of view on that, because nobody in the media is going to ask Trump any of this stuff. He's not going to bring it up. The voice of the Libertarian Party isn't big enough yet where he has to bring it up. So he was nice enough to go. So I'm glad to see there was some pushback, because there's a whole group of people that agree with you on a lot of stuff, but don't agree with you on everything. So if we could find this middle ground, we could start working on, this quote unquote utopia.
Yeah, there's no such thing as utopia. But yeah, maybe there's some value to planting your flag in the sand and being like, no, we have grievances here. We want everybody to hear that, including you. I have to give Trump a lot of credit for coming to do this, though. He didn't have to, right? He could have done what Biden did, which was just not
go to the beach.
Biden was invited as well, and he didn't show up. And then, ironically, it's funny, the Biden team was sharing the videos of him getting booed as some sort of win or own. Bro, he didn't even come. Like, if you would have came, forget it. You'd have been booed out of the building. But there is something to commend Donald Trump for actually coming and taking some slings and arrows. And then again, like I said this in our last thing, trying to win people over. Isn't that the idea of an election? Like, you go somewhere, you try and convince someone to vote for you, which we'll get into here in the next part.
And like I was just saying, and what we're going to get into, he didn't know what the outcome was going to be. He didn't put his name on the ballot to be voted, to become the Libertarian nominee. He didn't do any of that. But like him showing up and speaking and giving his perspective and showing the willingness to work and what he says he's, is thinking of doing, and then Chase becoming the nominee, once again, only helps this man. It worked out real well for him.
Yeah. I also think it shows that, I know me and you have said this before, and we even said this to people when we were at the LP convention here in Connecticut. We're like, no, like, don't be so black-pilled. Like, libertarianism is like on the rise, and the idea is spreading, and there's definitely being more libertarians, like made the last couple of years, especially. And I think Donald Trump fucking recognizes that, right? And it's going to be a razor-thin margin in this election, and he's trying to build a coalition, and libertarians have gotten their base big enough for Donald Trump to be like, I better try and like win these people over. Otherwise, if I don't have them, I might lose, or they might be like the deciding factor.
I mean, what do you think? So, I mean, just you split it up. Obviously, there's going to be people voting for Joe Biden. There's no denying that. There's going to be votes for RFK. There's going to be votes for Trump. And then if there was votes for Rechtenwald, between RFK and Rechtenwald, this could pull 2%, 3%, 4% between RFK and the Libertarian Party. They could take a collective like 10, 12% from both big parties, and and then we get stuck with Biden again.
It could, that could be the outcome. So that it made sense to come and appeal to the Libertarian Party. Which let's let Trump talk now, and he made his proposition to the LP, and it is an interesting proposition. I'm not going to lie. Let's see what he had to say.
That is why I'm committing to you tonight that I will put a libertarian in my cabinet and also libertarians in senior posts. Pretty good.
It's like the most Trump thing to do ever. He makes a proposition, then immediately after he tells you how good
pretty good deal
is.
The best deal.
Pretty big. Or you can keep going the way you have for the last long decades and get your 3%, then meet again, get another 3%. No, you want to make yourself. That is why I'm.
So that's it. I'll put a libertarian in my cabinet and in other senior positions. If you vote for me, if you support me, or you could just keep getting your 3%. That's Trump's gambit or his offer to the Libertarian Party.
One, he's not wrong. You're going to just get your 3%, pal. Sorry to tell you. But two, Dave Smith could be that cabinet member.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Why not?
I don't see Dave, because Dave is trying to build his own brand at the moment. So,
right, but you get your foot in politics.
I'd be all for it. I just don't see it being him. Nor would I.
If he's the hero of the party, and Trump only wants the best, start at the best for your cabinet member.
Dave is a figurehead, right?
They're all figureheads.
No, Dave is a figurehead, right? He's like the guy who should be the figurehead. I'll make an argument to who I think it should be in this theoretical scenario. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that wasn't the only thing Trump offered. He did offer that he will commute the sentence of Russ Ulbricht, who basically is in jail for life for creating a website where people could sell things to one another. And I know I have a long thing here by Spike Cohen I could maybe get into, but we're kind of running up on time already. I think that it's something that should be done, right? And if the Libertarian Party could have leveraged Trump to get a win, get somebody out of prison who's unfairly there, that's a great thing. Like, they actually did something for someone's liberty that should be commended as well. So,
I really like this proposition. I think this is something that, when I always say the Libertarian Party needs to get its shit together, here is a chance to get some of your shit together, because having libertarians in senior positions in his cabinet, maybe get some, 2 years after the election, there's, everybody in the House and the Senate's going to be up for re-election again. Maybe we get some senators in there. Maybe we get some congressmen and women in there, and it's a foothold. And then we could have this multiple wild cards in state and nation that, there's 5 more Democrats than there are Republicans, so they're just going to vote in favor of all these left-leaning ways. Let's get a couple of wild cards in there. It could change everything.
Let's see what Angela McArdle had to say. Boy, was this interesting. She won re-election as the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party, and she said, "Everyone is understandably flipping out right now. I will have more to say this weekend. For now, I'll say that I delivered an incredible convention with the help of my amazing staff and volunteers. All of my critics were wrong. I made the right call to invite Donald Trump, and if libertarians can behave themselves, he will free Ross Ulbricht and put one of us in his cabinet. Balls in your court, libertarians. We are getting in that administration." She also responded to another tweet by Liam McCollum, where Liam McCollum said, "Angela McArdle is playing an entirely different game right now, and I'm here for it. We did not take all L's this weekend. The party finally has a political strategy." Angela McArdle retweeted this and said, "More strategic announcements incoming." So, I mean, I don't know. Is Angela McArdle maybe negotiating with the Trump team behind the scenes as to who this libertarian is going to be? Maybe not. I don't even know. Again, she still has her own presidential candidate to, who's running a campaign. So it's really interesting. What do you think? Who should, from your opinion, then I'll give my take. Who should if it's going to be one? Now, on the other hand, I think Trump needs to announce this before he actually becomes president.
Yeah,
right?
so otherwise, he can't make the big mystery, man.
If you want to actually win over my vote, I need to know who it is. My biggest criticism of you, Donald Trump, is that you put terrible people in positions of power. So if you want to put at least one of my guys in charge, great. I might be more willing to vote for you. I will even say I probably will vote for you in that case. But I need to know who it is. And then that person needs to be also good, not like a Chase Oliver type libertarian or a Reason or Cato type libertarian, one of these regime types. So who do you think it should be?
Ron Paul, I don't know, Dave Smith. I would like to see Dave Smith get his foot in the door, and at least if he could be in Trump's ear. Dave's not afraid to push back and give those zingers, and the way he thinks And, you know, you were just saying like Trump puts shitty people in strong positions. Well, let's get somebody like Dave Smith, who is going to be vocal to the other people, the shitty people in the other positions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it'll be Dave. Of course, I'd like for Dave to be in an administration. I don't think he's going to do that. If I had my dream,
Scott Horton.
It's Scott Horton. Right? It's got to be Scott Horton.
He just popped into my head.
It's Scott Horton as not only in the administration, but he's going to be the Secretary of State. There's no one who knows more about foreign policy in the world than Scott Horton. And he's a grumpy old son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to be a tough Secretary of State. Even if Donald Trump doesn't want to put him as Secretary of State, though, Scott Horton would make a fantastic addition to Trump's team because he's just a wealth of knowledge. So even if he doesn't want to do what Scott Horton would want him to do, which I'm sure they would disagree, Scott Horton knows everything. He could rely on him for like, all right, I have to go and do this negotiation with Kim Jong-un or with Hamas and Netanyahu. Please give me the history of this. So I'm going into this knowing both sides of the story for real here. That would probably be my number one pick.
That'd be pretty cool. That'd be cool to see.
It would be really cool to see. It would be great for America to have a guy like that who knows a lot and, you know, would be pushing for the correct course of action. Yeah. At least in foreign policy.
Especially since the second Biden took over, our foreign policy has disintegrated. Just like that dock in Gaza that we spent billions on or millions on.
Good. I'm glad that fucking sunk. That was a nightmare waiting to happen. My second pick, and this might be actually the most... This one has actually a chance, I think, of happening. Judge Andrew Napolitano as the chief, head of the Department of Justice. Judge Knapp is a libertarian, right? He's not actively involved in the party or the camp that we're in, but damn it, he's basically exactly like the Mises Caucus camp of libertarianism. He's a libertarian through and through. Trump should put him in as the head of the Department of Justice. He will not only, like fairly in a libertarian sense, operate as the head of the Department of Justice in terms of like pardons. You're going to probably see Edward Snowden, Julian Assange freed, and things like that. Of course, Russ Holbert. But damn it, he's going to go after the people that are going after Donald Trump right now, right? Because those people are fucking corrupt, the deep state, and they should be held accountable. Judge Knapp will do that on top of being a libertarian in every other sense of the world. So I think Judge Andrew Napolitano is probably the most likely choice if this is actually
I like it
at all. And if either of those two guys, or let's say Ron Paul as the Federal Reserve chairman, so he can Ron Paul as the last Federal Reserve chairman, that would be awesome, even in his old age. We'll see, man. I really do think that needs to come out before Trump, before the election. And I will say that if he does do that, and it's a principle good one, I would vote for him in that. And I think that we should use. Trump admitted to us that we have leverage. He did. He wouldn't have came and tried to pitch to the Libertarian Party. So I think we should use the leverage, right? And we should hang on to that. I'm not going to vote for you unless you actually put one of these libertarians into a position of authority or in a position that matters, or at least on an advisory, something. Give me something and I will vote for you. I will not only vote for you, but if you put the right person, I will like actively support you and try and help on this little tiny podcast. You get elected. So there you go, Donald Trump. That's my proposition to you, Donald Trump.
All right, fair enough. So little tweets of the week now.
You want to do that? Do you want to do North Korea, man? We got 10 minutes left till an hour. North Korea is so funny. I think
that is a short little segment. Okay, people, I have an article.
Perfect. with the nuance and the detail.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed today. It was a blip on the radar, and I can't believe what happened. But this is, and it's going to be the weirdest sentence I ever say, the funniest act of terrorism I have ever seen in my life. This is God King level trolling, and I do not support Kim Jong-un at all. But this was wild.
Yeah. So from the Hill, North Korea sends fleet of balloons carrying excrement to South Korea. As already warned by North Korean Vice Minister of National Defense, a large amount of waste paper and rubbish are being scattered in the border and deep areas of the Republic of Korea from the night of May 28th, reads a statement from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yoo-jong, according to state-run news agency. The Joint Chiefs of Staff of the South Korean puppet army said that the North Korea is scattering a large number of balloons over South Korea from last night. It urged North Korea to stop such an act at once, claiming it's a clear violation of international law, an act of seriously threatening the security of South Korean people, and an unethical and lowbrow act. According to the Associated Press, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the North has been sending balloons carrying trash in the direction of the South beginning Tuesday, responding to activists from South Korea sending anti-Northern leaflets over the border. So that's it. So Kim Jong-un and his sister, and they're literally sending bags of shit in balloons over the border into South Korea.
I would like to see where it says in international law that you shall not let shit rain down upon your enemies. And I got to say, we got to get Chris, the king of the trash realm, on here to defend his trash realm, because Kim Jong-un is
making a play. He's making a play for number one spot.
Yeah, as the king of the trash realm. People, just my one point, I'm going to take it a little further, is I would defect to North Korea if I could have been in the room when he was like, all right, we got to do something to South Korea. I want a plan on my desk tomorrow morning or you're fucking dead. And this guy stayed up all night, shitting himself. And he's like, what are we going to do? I got an idea. And he presented the idea to Kim Jong-un. We're going to get balloons. We're going to fill them with trash and poop. And and he was like, and Kim Jong-un was like, this is a great idea. I really like this, guys.
Yeah. Or I wonder if it was him who proposed it. I was thinking the exact same thing. Maybe he's like, all right, everybody, sit down. I have an idea.
That's even better.
Just hear me out. It's going to sound fucking crazy, but it's going to work. Trust me. We're going to send balloons full of shit over the border into South Korea. Look, man, I don't, obviously, like you said at the beginning, I don't think Kim Jong-un is a good person. I do think we should have good relations with him and not try and be at each other's fucking throats. The Korean people's problem is their problem. They should handle and they should sort it out. We're not going to be able to export freedom at the end of a barrel of a gun. But this was fucking funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it's ironic how offended, like the politicians and people in power are. Yeah, they could be sending artillery shells or missiles. This is like
they could be raining anthrax down on people or something.
I'm fine with this. This is good humored, rivalry between two countries that don't like each other. I'd prefer that Ukraine and Russia were sending bags of poop, over the wall to each other than what they're doing right now. But keep it in context here. My goodness.
I know if Biden finds out about this, we'll probably send a couple of billion to South Korea.
He'll just send his pants that he
his
shits
diapers
all the time. They'll tie his pants full of shit up and they'll put them on a balloon and send them back. Here, buddy. Here's Grandpa ice cream cones. Pants.
Biden soft serve.
All right, let's do tweets of the week. We haven't done tweets of the week in a while, man.
I'm gonna be honest with you though. Next week I'm not gonna have any tweets because I am terrified to open my Twitter account. Maybe what we do for next week's episode is like a 20-minute segment where I just open up Twitter and read the nonsense that comes out.
Before we get started, do you have any videos so that I'm not bouncing here between how I share the screen?
No, I think it's all. I'm 90% sure it's all from Twitter this week.
Okay, all right. So I'll get started here, and my first one is from Senator Eric Brackey, and he says, "Last night, Trump promised to put a libertarian in a cabinet position. I keep wondering, what's the most ironic cabinet position a libertarian could find himself in? Transportation. Libertarians finally make it into the White House, but they're put in charge of the roads." Let's go on to yours.
All right, let's see. Okay, so June is around the corner. It is a picture of men crawling under barbed wire with gay pride flags. And it says, "Me just shopping for a belt and socks in June."
Yeah, is that Chase Oliver there?
Yeah. The next one, I think, is Chase Oliver.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see this coming June. There was some pushback last year on the outrageous Pride Month stuff. Let's see how it's coming up. One more day, right? And let's see how it if it's like
Just-
reeled in or pulled back a little bit this year as opposed to previous years. It's
just
becoming more
check
popular.
BMW America's Twitter page and then go to BMW Saudi Arabia's page, and you learn everything you need to know.
All right, my next one is from the king, or maybe the former king of Instagram, Dan Bilzerian. who has
Oh boy,
been, inactive a lot for the past year.
he changed. He changed. He tried to change his ways. Yeah,
for the better. I'm proud of Dan Bilzerian. So Dan Bilzerian says, to all the U.S. soldiers on the USS Liberty who were murdered by our ally Israel, and to all of our soldiers who died fighting Israel's wars, happy Memorial Day. I'd like all of our congressmen to spend the day petting all of the money Israel is giving you to support their terrorist activities. Boy.
Dan Bilzerian's activated, baby.
Yeah, my cousin saw that and she's like, wow, that is a bold position for somebody like Dan Bilzerian, who's like in the right
bangs
wing,
bitches and gambles.
also is in like the right wing, camp of things to take that position. I gotta fucking agree.
Had another one on Instagram today.
Yeah, that
or
is
the
a
other
bold,
day. Yeah,
that is a bold position. I gotta wonder what activated Dan Bilzerian. Maybe it's just that raw, toxic America First masculinity,
the same shit that
energy in him, and he's like, "Fuck this! I need to say something about this." Clearly not America First policy that a lot of these other right wingers are pushing, and I'm at least going to say something about it because I can't take it anymore. Maybe that's what Dan Bilzerian was thinking. I don't know.
Hey, DB for president.
All right, next one for Cap.
Okay, from Being Libertarian, it is a picture of a disheveled Lois Griffin with the Ron Paul Libertarians looking at a pill bottle saying Trump 2024.
Yeah, this is the famous meme. Yeah, there's definitely some. Donald Trump, is worth noting that, when Trump ran for president in 2016, he took a lot of Ron Paul's talking points from Ron Paul's run in 2008 and 2012. Like, that's what made people like him a lot. Like he was, the wars, what we did in Iraq, it was a bullshit war. Bush lied us into war. All these things, like those were Ron Paul talking points. And then to be honest with you, if it wasn't for Ron Paul a couple of years before 2016 laying the groundwork for that, maybe Donald Trump never picks up any of those talking points, right? I think Donald Trump was wise enough to see that there was a lane there. There were people who didn't like those sorts of things, and that set him apart from the rest of the candidates besides Rand Paul, Ron Paul's son, made him different. That like America First populist energy. Yeah. He should be anti-war, all war, by the way, not just certain wars, all the wars. We should be against,
when they pay you. Yeah,
as Dave Smith would say, we should be against foreign adventurism. Or we should be going around the world looking for adventures to go on that fuck over the American people.
Yeah, at the cost of our dollar.
Yeah, and our guys' lives, even worse. All right, this is my last tweet, and then Captain got one more. Staying on the kind of the topic here. This one's by Yanis Varoufakis.
Is this the one where you left a comment about her?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll read it and then I'll describe it to people who are listening. Nikki Haley is in, or that's a kind of description in of itself. So Nikki Haley is in Israel scribbling "finish them" on the shells that the IDF is about to fire into Rafah in defiance of the International Court of Justice. Biden provided the shells. Republicans autographed them. The U.S. political class is united in its complicity with this genocide. So, I've said before.
I completely agree with what was just said.
There you go. There's Nikki Haley. She loves Israel so much. She's literally signing artillery shells that are about to be fired in a war. I mean,
things like this is why Dan Bilzerian's activated.
Things like this will invite blowback terrorism on the United States. You don't think that the Ayatollah or whoever's in charge of Hamas at the moment, or ISIS or Al Qaeda, this is fucking poster board material. Your family was just exploded by one of these shells in Rafah, right? And you're the lone survivor. You're the young son, right, of the family that just got blown up by one of these shells in Rafah. And some Hamas operative is going to grab you and show you this fucking photo of Nikki Haley autographing the shell that killed your family. What do you think is going to happen to that kid? Do you think he's going to be like, well, I have a nuanced take on what should happen between a two-state solution in America? And it's not really, innocent libertarian Americans' fault in the United States. They're not to blame for this. This is only the foreign policy of their government. No, they're going to just kill you, right? Because you killed their family. You're not going to have any nuanced take. And if you don't understand that concept and how shit like this is not America first by any stretch of the fucking imagination, you are a moron and you should be nowhere near the levers of power. The only position Donald Trump should be giving to Nikki Haley in his administration is the ambassador to the South Pole. And she should remain there for all 4 years, and we never hear from her the entire time. Maybe Garrett could go down there and try and sort out with her what the fuck's going on in the South Pole. But somebody like this does not, if somebody like this should not be in the administration. Let's just put it that way.
No, right? Agreed. So agreed.
That's my rant for Nikki Haley. We got one more tweet of the week. Let's end it up there. Oh boy, I already see who it's from.
Libertarian Party, New Hampshire. Chase Oliver will run the gayest campaign in the Libertarian Party has ever seen.
Look, man, I know it's a mind fuck probably to like MAGA people who aren't in the weeds of the Libertarian Party and whatnot, but it's a decentralized, individualist revolution movement. There's not a coherent, we're never going to like be this like organized force of a bunch of people who all agree on the same thing. It's against our nature. Maybe we can like get to that point in the beginning where we'll make deals with each other or something like that. But you literally just had a state Libertarian Party affiliate make fun of the candidate. They're not going to we're never going to agree on everything. And so that's kind of a great, I like that you picked that, Cap, because it's a great representation of what the Libertarian Party is.
Get your shit together, boys.
All right. That's our show. Captain, sign us off.
All right, Doom Nation, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't worry too much about Donnie Trump. He will be okay. We will be okay. We'll see what happens in November. And on that note, thank you guys. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We will be back next week. Adios, Doom Nation.